States. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Justice Department's Ethics Office has recommended the Attorney General reopen and pursue nearly a dozen CIA prisoner abuse cases. This, according to the New York Times. The move would reverse Bush administration policy, which had closed the cases and could expose CIA employees and contractors to criminal prosecution. The Times reports the recommendation by the Office of Professional Responsibility was recently presented to Attorney General Eric Holder. Holder is also expected to announce within days his decision on whether to appoint a prosecutor to conduct a new investigation into prisoner abuse. The ethics recommendation comes as the Justice Department is scheduled today to disclose a long-suppressed 2004 report by the CIA's Inspector General detailing prisoner abuse. Among the findings are that CIA interrogators stage mock executions on prisoners. The federal law banning the use of torture expressly forbids threatening a detainee with imminent death. The report also describes how one prisoner, suspected USS Cole bomber Abdal-Rahim al-Nashiri, was threatened with a handgun and an electric power drill during the course of CIA interrogation. Newsweek magazine first reported details from the report on its website Friday night. Michael Isikoff is the investigative correspondent for Newsweek. He joins us on the phone from Washington, D.C. What did you learn, Michael? What did you report on this report that's expected to come out today?
Well, we got some of the details of what's going to be in the report, particularly on this matter of mock executions, that the CIA staged mock executions of detainees. In one case, it shot a gun in a room next to one detainee, in an effort to have that detainee believe that the detainee in the next room was being executed. In other instances, a gun was brandished in front of a detainee, Abdel al-Rahim Nashiri, an accused architect of the Cole bombing, and also a power drill was brought in and turned on close to his head in an effort to intimidate him, make him think that he was going to be drilled or shot, and the issue here is none of these techniques were authorized by the Justice Department legal memos, those memos that have been so controversial, and a internal ethics report by the Justice Department to come out soon will say were badly flawed and possibly unethical on their face. But these techniques went beyond what was in the legal memos, so they raise a whole set of new legal issues that are going to be addressed in the next few days.
Michael Isikoff, what are these legal issues?
Well, as a federal torture law does forbid anybody from threatening a detainee with imminent death. So one obvious question with mock executions and brandishing a gun and a power drill is, was the intent here to threaten that detainee, in this case Mr. Nashiri, with execution? That seems to be what is being talked about, and it is hard to know on its face how that squares with the federal prohibition on torture, which does include that language about imminent death. So that's one on its face. There's also a whole host of other questions about detainee deaths and treatments that and interrogations that in other respects went beyond the guidelines. We know from the memos that have already been released, the Justice Department memos, that in some instances the waterboarding was found by the Inspector General to go to be excessive and beyond what was authorized in the memos. So everybody has been waiting for some time to see the CIA Inspector General report that was actually completed 5 years ago in May of 2004, but has been suppressed until now.
And it is coming out now because?
It's been coming out now because there has been a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit by the ACLU that has been vigorously prosecuted by its lawyers. They have been pushing very hard and found a judge, Judge Hellerstein in New York, who has ordered the release of the report. He had actually ordered it, Judge Hellerstein, some time ago, and the government, through the Justice Department, has been repeatedly delaying release There's been a back and forth with the CIA, which, as we know, has fiercely resisted disclosure of any of these reports and documents about the kind of interrogations that took place under the Bush administration. But thanks to the ACLU, thanks to the judge, it has prodded disclosure, and how much of that report we're going to see, we'll know in a few hours. About half of it, I'm told, is going to be still redacted, even with the order from the judge. So there may still be further litigation on this.
And the information that came out from the torture of Nashiri, his claiming that al-Qaeda was working on a nuclear bomb?
We don't know about that. There certainly have been instances where detainees have made claims under extreme interrogations or torture that have turned out to be blatantly false. The most obvious case, one we've talked about on this program before, is Ibn al-Sheikh al-Libi, who was rendered to Egypt, subjected to aggressive techniques, something approaching a mock burial by the Egyptians, and coughed up the information that Osama bin Laden had sent operatives to Saddam Hussein's Iraq for training in chemical biological weapons. That was proven to be false. Ibn Sheikh al-Libi recanted that claim, and the CIA was forced to withdraw it, although it was used prominently in the run-up to the war in Iraq. So that's probably the most dramatic example that we know about. Precisely what Nashiri said remains classified, and I'm not sure we're going to see that in the report today. We'll find out again in a few hours.
What about, Michael Isikoff, the Office of Public Responsibility report?
Professional responsibility.
Professional responsibility.
Yeah, that is the ethics office in the Justice Department that has been conducting for more than 4 years now an investigation of those legal memos themselves that were authored by John Yoo and Jay Bybee and later Steve Bradbury at the Justice Department. This report has been extremely controversial. When it was first presented to Attorney General Michael Mukasey in the last days of the Bush administration, he rejected it, sent it back, would not endorse its findings. What we are told is those findings are not just sharply critical of these legal memos, but may have found that in some instances the lawyers went beyond or exceeded their professional conduct in deliberately slanting the memos to omit legal references that might have undercut its findings that the Bush White House wanted, which is that all these techniques could be conducted without running afoul of the law. That report has been undergoing a declassification process, and we should be seeing that report fairly soon as well. So there's a lot that people have been talking about in this whole basket of issues relating to the interrogation and detention of detainees that we are expected to be learning in the next few weeks. Starting today.
Fire Dog Lake is saying that that they have been holding it because the CIA has been reviewing it to protect John Rizzo's role in crafting Office of Legal Counsel memos that claim to authorize torture, the outgoing general counsel for the CIA.
Well, we do know that John Rizzo, who was the acting general counsel of the CIA, was directly involved in these matters. He was the CIA lawyer who shows up on the memos that have been released as the one who was communicating with the Justice Department lawyers about how these memos would be written. So it would make sense that he would be directly involved. Whether the CIA is trying to protect him as opposed to just generally protecting disclosures about these programs is hard to know. It is worth noting that CIA Director Panetta, appointed by President Obama, has been leading the charge against disclosure of many of these matters. He fought the disclosure of the first batch of Justice Department memos that came out last spring. He has resisted disclosing operational cables that would shed light on the interrogation of, for example, Abu Zubaydah, who was the first detainee to be waterboarded. He has essentially essentially been adopting the position of his agency in fighting, saying any further disclosures will demoralize the CIA and make it more difficult for it to do its job.
Michael Iskoff, if you could stay with us for 1 minute, we're going to break. And when we come back, I want to ask you about Eric Holder.